The script unfolds like a quiet, emotional portrait of love under pressure, tracing how an ordinary sense of exhaustion slowly becomes a life-altering reckoning for Mark and Kelly. Rather than leaning on drama, the story moves gently, showing how illness enters a household not with spectacle, but with silence, confusion, and change. At its core, this is not a story about diagnosis alone, but about partnership, endurance, and the private courage required to keep living fully when certainty disappears. Through kitchens, hospital rooms, and late-night conversations, the narrative reveals how humor, intimacy, and shared resolve become lifelines. It is a deeply human account of vulnerability made bearable through love, reminding us that even in public lives, the most meaningful battles are often fought quietly, hand in hand. The first signs of quiet exhaustion. Mark's decline did not announce itself dramatically. It crept in through fatigue that felt unfamiliar, through moments where his body no longer kept pace with his will. This exhaustion was not collapse, but erosion. A steady draining that left him sitting alone outside the studio, questioning when strength had slipped away. He had always been in motion, a man defined by momentum, work, and routine. Life moved quickly around him, built on schedules, laughter, and responsibility. Kelly remained close, a steady presence who both supported and observed. Their shared life had weathered public scrutiny and private hardship before, but this felt different. Something intangible had shifted. The story captures that unsettling phase where nothing is yet named, but everything feels off, and the body begins asking questions the mind is not ready to answer. A household built on rhythm and trust. Their home functioned on a familiar rhythm shaped by years together. Coffee, wit, inside jokes, and unspoken understanding formed the glue of daily life. So when Mark finally admitted he had not been feeling well, Kelly listened with a focus that only deep love brings. The kitchen scene, flooded with daylight, becomes symbolic of honesty entering the open. Mark attempted humor as a shield, instinctively trying to soften the moment. Kelly's response shifted from laughter to resolve. Her insistence that he see a doctor was firm, not dramatic, grounded in care. Though Mark resisted the loss of control, he also felt relief. The moment marked a transition from avoidance to acknowledgement, showing how love sometimes means making decisions when the other cannot. The long wait for answers. Medical uncertainty became its own emotional landscape. Tests offered fragments rather than clarity, creating a tension filled with waiting rooms, outdated magazines, and the hum of vending machines. Time seemed to blur as each appointment merged into the next. When the specialist finally spoke, his calm professionalism underscored the gravity of the moment. The diagnosis arrived not as an explosion, but as a fact, precise and devastating in its simplicity. The word itself carried weight, reshaping how Mark understood his own body. Illness did not redefine his character, but it reframed his future. Suddenly, ordinary conversations required care, and schedules gained new importance. The narrative captures how diagnosis is not just medical, but deeply personal, altering how life is measured and felt. Kelly's transformation into anchor and advocate. Kelly's response to the diagnosis revealed another layer of strength. She immersed herself in information, absorbing medical language with the same intensity she once brought to scripts. She asked questions others might hesitate to voice, pushing for clarity and understanding. Yet her strength was not only intellectual. In quiet moments, she sat with Mark without speaking, offering comfort through presence alone. Late at night, her hand tracing his tattoos became a ritual of reassurance, a way of saying the illness would not isolate him. This balance between fierce advocacy and gentle companionship shows how love adapts under strain. Kelly became both shield and anchor, holding space for fear while refusing to let it dominate their shared life. Redefining privacy. In public life, living in the public eye complicated everything. Silence invited speculation, yet overexposure risked turning pain into spectacle. Together, Mark and Kelly navigated how much to share and when. Advisors offered strategies, but the final choice was deeply personal. They opted for honesty without drama, clarity without exploitation. Their statement was not designed to shock, but to protect their children and offer understanding. Once released, the news spread rapidly, reshaped by headlines and filters. Support poured in, mixed with curiosity. Their home remained a sanctuary, but the couple understood that conversations were happening beyond their control. The narrative highlights the burden of visibility and the quiet discipline required to remain grounded while the world watches, facing an uncertain future. With the diagnosis came moments of stark reflection. Mark imagined himself alone on a stage, wondering whether he would return to it or choose another path entirely. The future, once assumed, now felt like a corridor with doors that might not open. This clarity was frightening but also grounding. He began thinking less about outcomes and more about dignity. The story emphasizes that illness does not only threaten the body, but also identity. Mark's challenge became learning how to move forward without certainty, carrying resilience alongside fear. These internal moments, understated yet powerful, reveal how vulnerability can coexist with strength. Treatment as routine, not drama. Contrary to public assumptions, treatment unfolded quietly. Days became structured around appointments, medication, and rest. Life narrowed, but within that narrowing, small moments gained intensity. Kelly brought humor into hospital rooms, reading absurd lines aloud to reclaim familiarity. Laughter became a survival tool, a crack through which light entered. Their children, older now, processed the situation with a mix of worry and practicality. School events and soccer games continued, grounding the family in normalcy. Friends and colleagues offered steady support, demonstrating the industry's capacity for compassion. The narrative shows how healing is often found not in grand gestures, but in continuity and care. The emotional cost of healing progress came unevenly. Some scans brought relief, others renewed anxiety. Treatment left visible marks, altering Mark's stamina and appearance. At times, he struggled to recognize himself, confronting the loss of physical certainty. Anger surfaced unexpectedly, directed at small frustrations or careless headlines. These moments were raw expressions of grief. Kelly responded differently, channeling frustration into action. She organized, advocated, and occasionally rebelled against limitations with spontaneous trips. Their contrasting responses illustrated how partners process pain differently, yet remain aligned. The story honors these emotional fluctuations, reminding readers that healing is rarely linear and always deeply human. Rediscovering creativity and inner voice. Amid the process, Mark returned to drawing, a long-abandoned personal ritual. The sketchbook became a quiet companion, allowing him to express what words could not. He sketched Kelly laughing, their children as playful figures, and their home as a fortress with open walls. These images symbolized resilience without isolation. Creativity offered him a sense of agency, a way to process fear and gratitude simultaneously. The act of drawing reconnected him to parts of himself untouched by illness. This rediscovery underscores how personal rituals can provide grounding, reminding us who we are beyond circumstance. The gift of heightened presence. As uncertainty reshaped time, the present moment gained clarity. Small details became precious. Shared coffee, familiar laughter, evening light. When the family gathered for a movie night, the simplicity felt profound. Kelly leaning against Mark carried a sense of peace, deeper than words. Regardless of outcomes, the diagnosis had sharpened their awareness of now. Stressors that once dominated faded in importance. The story highlights how crisis can recalibrate values, drawing attention to what truly sustains us. Presence, rather than planning, became their quiet victory. Love. As the constant thread. Throughout the narrative, love remains the unchanging element. Kelly's face, unchanged by fear or fatigue, became Mark's point of orientation. Her love existed before, during, and beyond the diagnosis. Together, they demonstrated how partnership is not about eliminating hardship, but about meeting it together. Humor, tenderness, anger, and hope coexisted, woven into daily life. The story closes not with resolution, but with resilience, emphasizing that even when futures are uncertain, shared love provides stability. In that constancy, the couple found meaning, strength, and a reason to keep moving forward.